5:30. It's yours, probably couldn't.
Right, can you hear me?
Haven't gotten anything yet, but it's the standard government rate for mileage.
Welcome to the city of Paris.
Thank you for hosting today, and I'm sorry that I'm in Marietta, but it has been a crazy day, as you know, being at the State of the City, and we have several events here that are gonna occur right after. So thank you for letting me Zoom online and join you from afar. So are we ready to start, Janice?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, fantastic. All right, well, welcome. I'm going to call to order our RCHCA Thursday, August 10th, 2023. And in the wonderful Paris City Hall chambers. Thank you to our gracious hosts. Also, before we start our meeting, I would like to recognize the fallen firefighters, Chief Biscoff, Captain Rodriguez, Mr. Souza, who recently passed away in the tragic helicopter accident. CAL FIRE not only keeps our community safe, but also works closely with RCHCA to enhance the SKR habitat. We owe them a debt of gratitude and a moment of remembrance. Please join me in a moment of silence. Thank you so much. Moving on to start our meeting, I'd like to start with the Pledge of Allegiance. And
Flag.
all right, all stand. Place your right hand over your heart. Ready, begin.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic which stands one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice
for all. Thank you. Moving on to roll call.
Here.
When I call your jurisdiction, if you would please state your name, city of Corona,
Here.
Richards,
State your name.
Oh, Tom Richards,
Richards, state.
still here.
Emmett,
Jackie Peterson.
Lake Elsinore, Menifee,
Lisa Stoback.
Moreno Valley,
Shaylinda Bernard.
Marietta,
Here.
city of Paris,
Michael Vargas.
Riverside,
Steve Hemingway.
Temecula,
James Stewart.
Wildemar,
Joseph Morabito.
and county of Riverside. That concludes roll call, and we have
Thank you so much. Moving on to public comments. This is the time members of the public can address the board regarding any items within subject matter jurisdiction of the board that is not separately listed on this agenda. Members of the public will have an opportunity to speak on agendized items at this time when the item is called for discussion. No action may be taken on items not listed on the agenda unless authorized by law. Whenever possible, lengthy testimony should be presented to the board in writing and only pertinent points presented orally. Do we have any public comments?
I have no requests.
Thank you so much. Moving on to the consent and policy calendar. All items listed on the consent and policy calendar may be enacted by one motion. Prior to the motion considered, any action by the board, any public comments on any of the consent and policy items will be heard. There will be no separate action unless members of the board request specific items be removed from the consent and policy calendar. Do we have anyone that would like to remove anything from the consent or policy calendar?
Move to approve Paris.
Thank you so much. Do we have a second?
Omar second.
All right. And roll call vote.
Luna,
Aye.
Emmett,
Aye.
Lake Elsinore, Menifee,
Aye.
Moreno Valley,
Aye.
Marietta,
Here, yeah, yes. I'm here again.
Paris,
Yes.
Riverside,
Yes.
Temecula,
Yes.
Wildomar,
Yes.
and County. That concludes roll call vote for the consent calendar and it passes unanimously.
Thank you. Moving on to reports and discussion. Fiscal year 2022-2023 annual review and financials.
Madam Chair. So just next slide, please.
You have the keyboard up there?
Yes. Oh, space. Oh, okay, just a side note before I begin, these numbers are still preliminary. They'll not be finalized for another several weeks as the books are being closed for fiscal year 22-23. But overall, fiscal year 22-23 was balanced and productive. The total revenue collected through June 30th was a total of 2.9 million against 1.5 million in expenditures. Compared to the prior fiscal year, which was 2 million in revenue against 1.4 million in expenditures. The largest revenue source this past fiscal year was the surplus land sale. We brought in 1.48 million, 50% of the total revenue stream. RCHCA endowment funds are 564 in interest and made up 19% of the overall revenue. The mitigation fee revenue collected. The mitigation fee revenue collected through June 30th was a total of 392,000, a 73% decrease from fiscal year 21-22. Pretty significant. Staff also brought in 163,000 in revenues for contracted services, or a total of 6% of the revenue. Total agency expenditures amounted to 1.5 million, which include administrative salary and benefits, general operations, land management, and for RCHCA owned lands, and educational outreach and program improvements that are not covered by the endowment funds. Expenditures included 816,000 in salary and benefits, 302,000 in overhead expenses, 258,000 in consulting labor, and 54,000 for insurance. While RCHCA saw a significant decrease in its mitigation fee collection, with the sale of the surplus land, increase in interest rates, and proactive reduction in expenses mid-year, we ended the fiscal year with a net revenue increase of $119,000 from the original budget and a budget surplus of 1.4 million. As my report, this is a receiving file.
Thank you so much for that report. Any questions from any of our members? All right, then we'll receive and file that. Thank you very much. Moving on to the status update of the Stevens kangaroo rat recovery efforts. Welcome, Brian.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Item 6B, as you said, is a status update on the recovery efforts of the Stevens kangaroo rat thus far. Since last reporting, last meeting, RCHCA staff had the opportunity to go out and pre-scout the 76 proposed sampling areas that we anticipated live trapping this year. Of those, about 30, I believe it was 34, were determined to have SKR signed and suitable for live trapping. This was compared to 46 last year. Let's see. So it sounds like there's a good decrease in the amount that we're live trapping, but overall, with the amount of vegetation we've had this year, with the rainfall that we've had, it's actually not a bad thing. If you're looking at around 50% live trapping of the sites that you're proposing to live trap, you're doing pretty good. When you're looking for a rare animal, if you flip a point 50% of the time, and you find these animals on the land that you're looking at them for, it's not a bad year. So next slide. Oh, I'm sorry. And so you'll see here where the green dots are new sites, and the red dots are resample sites. It's a combination of resampling and new, just to try to expand the areas that we're looking for in to see if the occupancy is increased, and the resample sites would help determine basically statistical year-to-year variation, what the population trends are doing. Next slide. So, got some great news also. In April of this year, staff applied for 2 grants, totaling $1.4 million through the BLM. In July, we got word that we received one grant for $1.2 million. That will buy us equipment and pay for labor to manage fuels, fire fuels within the SKR reserve. Managing fire fuels is very similar to managing SKR habitat. We want to reduce the fire fuels. We want to reduce the grasses. That's also good for SKR. It'll also help protect our communities in the wildland urban interface from basically a tragic wildfire event. And so we are planning to purchase several large pieces of equipment, including an LED TV, large. And right now we have a 50-gallon sprayer that we use to fight stink net and other weeds. We're talking about buying a several 100-gallon sprayer, a large bobcat, a much bigger mower to mow down the weeds and the grasses. And so this is basically taking our existing efforts and amplifying them up to an industrial scale, an agricultural scale. So we also want to, since being paid for our labor, we want to expand not just RCHCA properties for management. We want to go in to help some of these other folks that don't have the means, and they will pay for the grant will pay for our time to do so. Namely, we're going to propose to work in northern San Diego. They're a little bit behind us. They don't have an HCP at this point. If you look on the map of where we're finding SKR, it's all in Riverside County. San Diego County, northern San Diego County is a little bit behind us as far as management and monitoring is concerned, although we need those areas to come on board if we're ever going to recover the species. So this grant will allow us to assist them in hopefully managing some of their properties. If they allow us, there's agreements to be worked out and whatnot, for preliminary conversations so that we can maybe help them out in some way to bring them up to speed. They're about 20 years behind us as far as SKR management and recovery actions goes. So it's great news. In addition, we also applied, and it's not on here because we just got word of it this week. We applied for a $250,000 grant for monitoring. We just received word on Monday that we received that grant funding as well. So there's another $250,000 coming our way to pay for monitoring, to pay for the database management through our contractors, Conservation Biology Institute. It'll pay for their time this year. It'll pay for staff's time for monitoring this year. We can hopefully expand the monitoring effort out if we need to. So all good news. Got about 1.4 million total in grant funding this year, coupled with the revenue that Rihanna talked about. We're sitting really good as far as recovery efforts are concerned going into the foreseeable future. We can sustain this effort and maybe even increase this effort as far as monitoring and management is concerned to really help speed things along as far as recovery is concerned. It's also really important that the federal government they let us know that this was their highest funding priority this year in this grant cycle. And so SKR was on the top of their list. So our outreach efforts to the federal government is being paid attention to. They recognize the importance of it and how close we are to actually recovering this species. So all good news. That kind of concludes the presentation, and I'll be happy to enter. Oh, I'm sorry. We are requesting an action to authorize the executive director to accept the grant funding available under the Bureau of Land Management funding opportunity announcement L23A 5002886 15.228 California Fuels Management and Community Fire Assistance Program application titled Fuel Management for SBR Reserve System, and execute all the associated documents to comply with the issuance of the grant. We are only asking at this time for, because it was such a late item, we weren't able to get the second grant application on to this agenda. But we do have our RCHCA policy 009 that says the executive director, after consulting with the chair and the vice chair, can accept that second grant without bringing it back to the board. So we are making the effort to bring this first one. We had the time to do so. The second one will be accepted after consulting with the chair and vice chair. So we're only asking for you to approve and authorize this first grant.
Thank you so much, Brian. Do I have a motion and a second for the authorization of the executive director to accept the grant funding as per what Brian listed?
Mike Elsinore.
I'll second it.
Motion by Menifee and a second by Lake Elsinore.
I do have a question.
Okay, and now we'll open it up to discussion and questions. I'd just like to say thank you so much for putting in for that grant. I know StinkNet has been an issue, and it's nice to hear that we'll have better weaponry against that nuisance. So thank you so much. And any questions?
Yeah, I'd just like to know who writes our grants.
staff writes the grant, as a team effort. I often write the narrative. Harry comes up with the itemized list of what we need to manage the area. Brianna does a lot of the finances and the grant application package, make sure all the T's are crossed, the I's are dotted, everything. We don't want to discount it because something wasn't in order. So it's a team effort. And then we asked our tech staff to carry out all the grant, all the action within the grant. It truly is a team effort, but we write it, we don't hire a consultant.
Okay, well, I just want to say thank you and kudos to staff. It sounds like you're doing a great job. The grants can be a little difficult. And like you said, you have to cross all the T's, dot all the I's. And so I just want to say thank you for staff. This is huge to be able to receive this amount. So congratulations to you guys.
Appreciate that.
Yeah, thank you. Any other comments?
Joseph from Wildemar, you mentioned the term, if I was hearing it right, did you say UTV? I'm not used to U.
Utility all-terrain vehicle, so it's not a side-by-side, it has the bed on the back, a little bed, it's not like an ATV, it's a typical utility. Like a California mule, we might have seen at golf courses and stuff like that, it's similar to that.
I appreciate the description.
Yeah, there's a large UTV and there's a large Bobcat with additional implements, mowers, there's also a large batwing mower for on the back of our tractor. Like I said, it's ramping it up. We've been doing a pretty good job with the equipment we've had. But if we want to recover the species, we need to amplify our efforts. And so this provides us with the equipment, and the equipment is ours for the next 5 years, if not longer. So there's an agreement that we're going to try to enter into. We've talked with the grant administrators. After the 5-year grant cycle is over, we will enter into an agreement, hopefully, that the equipment stay with the RCHCA. Right now, it will be back, but for the next 5 years, it's our state money.
All right.
Anything else?
Seeing that I can see no one's hand, we have no more questions. We need roll call vote for that.
Yes, ma'am. Cities Corona,
Aye.
Emmett,
Aye.
Lake Elsinore,
Yes.
Menifee,
Aye.
Moreno Valley,
Aye.
Murrieta,
Here, yes.
Harris,
Yes.
Riverside.
Yes.
Temecula,
Yes.
Livermore,
Yes.
and County of Riverside. That concludes roll call vote for this item, and it passes unanimously.
Fantastic, and congratulations again. Great grant writing. I know it's very hard to do that. Moving on to item C, Stevens Kangaroo Route Reserve Management and Monitoring Efforts Activities Update. Harry, welcome.
Thank you. Item 6C is just an update on reserve management and monitoring efforts. So I'm going to briefly go over some of the items that we've been working on since our last meeting and kind of recap fiscal year 22-23. So one of the biggest things that we worked on during the last reporting period here was prescribed burn at the Lake Matthews Estelle Mountain Reserve. So we managed to burn 105 acres this year. We were planning for a little bit more, but conditions were a little difficult on the day of the burn. Just to remind everybody, though, the burning is really beneficial to the Stevens Kangaroo rat habitat, as Brian was mentioning earlier. It reduces or gets rid of the thatch layer that's caused by our non-native grass species that we have out there. It allows for a native species to germinate, and also our Stevens kangaroo rat and other species that rely on that type of habitat to be able to move through and forage. So after a while, fire is part of our management tools. We usually go through mow these areas at least twice a year to kind of reduce the seed amount that's in the grass there. But after a while, you can imagine all the mowing, and especially this year with all the rain that we got, the grass grows up, we get layers of thatch, and it becomes kind of a maze for the kangaroo rats. They can't get through that. So fire is a really nice, effective tool that we use to improve the habitat really quickly out there. We did have another benefit of the fires as well as for our residents. The Lake Matthews Reserve at least is pretty much surrounded by residential developments at this point. So one of the benefits, indirect benefits of these fires, but a really good benefit of it is that we reduce the amount of fuels that are available in these areas. So therefore, we're reducing the amount or the threat of uncontrolled wildfires in the area as well. So as a result, the residents of the area get some benefits from that as well. We did have a really great turnout from CAL FIRE. This year, there was fire crews from all over Western Riverside County. The city of Corona and the city of Riverside also had some units there, as well as the Saboba and Morongo reservations had their fire units available for us as well, along with CAL FIRE's air attack team, California Department of Corrections crews were there as well, and California Conservation crews. So lead up to the fire, there's a lot of work that goes into it. It starts off with us doing some vegetation and habitat assessments to kind of determine what areas need fire. We do these vegetation surveys to go through and find sensitive habitat perhaps or native species that we have to protect. And once we determine where a fire is necessary, you can see from some of these pictures here, we got a lot of growth in our grass over the last few years. So it's really nice to have a fire this year to kind of clear that up. But once we determine where there's going to be a fire, CAL FIRE then steps in. They have archaeologists that come out and look for sensitive resources in the area that may need protection during a fire as well. After that is where I say that's when the actual hard work begins. You have to reduce the fuels around these sensitive either plant communities or these archaeological sites, whatever it may be. That took us about 6 weeks this year to complete that, and that's pretty much working daily. We had our open space habitat technicians out there. Again, California Department of Corrections had their crews, and the California Conservation had their crews as well. So it was nonstop, 6 weeks working in some really hot weather, dry conditions out there. It's a really difficult task, but you'll see in the next slides here that we get some really good results out of this. Just a reminder, we had some tragedy this week, actually, or this past week with some firefighters, but this is not only really beneficial to our habitat, to the residents surrounding these reserves as well, but also the firefighters. Our prescribed burn usually happens right before the traditional fire season starts in Southern California. And these are usually the only real live fire exercises that they get before they start working on actual fires. You can see there, we had a really great turnout of fire crews. The helicopter, the fire helitack crews actually got to practice water dropping a good amount. And it's a really good synergistic relationship that we have. In fact, CAL FIRE, to commend them again, they went out and looked for some grants as well. And they're starting to purchase equipment, which is more sensitive to our needs, essentially. We kind of frown upon having any type of bulldozer or ground disturbance because of our SKR burrows. They're now learning that and are being more accommodating. So they're buying more equipment that's more suited for what we do. So they can now come in, quickly reduce fuels while still kind of preserving the ground underneath that. So again, it's a really great relationship. We really enjoy having them out there. And, as a resident of Riverside County, I'm happy to provide the opportunity to get them to practice and be able to work safer when they get out into a real fire out in the wild. So we were planning on burning about 300 acres, but again, conditions during the day of the fire got a little extreme. So again, they did get to practice a full suppression, which is something that they really don't do during a controlled burn. But thankfully, they got to do that, and that was great practice for everybody on the scene. So just to recap, kind of everything that we did between 2022 and 23, we grazed over 2,300 acres of grassland habitat. Again, that's non-native grassland habitat within the Lake Matthews and Stell Mountain Reserve. We mowed about 150 acres. And we did invasive species control, like Brian was talking about earlier, with our small equipment. We managed to do about 300 acres. We carried out the restoration of 3 acres of grassland habitat. So we do it once something is burnt, or we've done a lot of eradication efforts. We have to restore that to get our native species back. So we did 30 acres this year. We try to do about 30 acres every year. We did 1.5 acres of coastal sage scrub. That's for the benefit of California coastal gnatcatcher and also the coastal horned lizard. So just to mention it, all of our managements, or most of our management is focused on SKR, but we do take care of at least 65 other species that we take care of under a contract with the Southern California Metropolitan Water District. So we do a lot of management for a lot of other species as well that are either in a habitat conservation plan or just have some kind of regional importance. Biological monitoring last year, of course, we did our SKR range-wide monitoring. We did surveys through California coastal gnatcatcher, Burlington fairy shrimps, spadefoot toads, and various amount of plants, different plants that are again regionally significant. Looking ahead in 2023 and 2024, we're really excited that we now have these grants. Recently, we just got a new agreement in place with the California Metropolitan Water District to continue to manage their lands for the next 5 years. Along with that plan, we have to turn in an annual work plan to the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service, the California Department of Fish and Wildlife, and the Metropolitan Water District. And so we're looking forward to this next fiscal year. We have some very ambitious plans. Essentially, we're going to step up all our efforts that we've been doing and try to get a better handle on all the things that we deal with, the invasive species. In particular, we're looking forward to having greater equipment, more flexibility to take care of those kinds of things. One of the highlights of our plans for next year is going to be a really comprehensive habitat and vegetation study. What that's going to do, it's essentially an exercise in GIS and a lot of biological surveys. And that's going to allow us to look back in time and determine how our management is working, how effective it is, and also be able to plan our management into the future. We're going to be able to see how our management is affecting the landscape on a large scale. We're also going to be able to determine what our management needs will be in the future. And that's going to take into consideration a lot of factors, not only what we do as land managers, but also what's going on with the environment around us. Is climate causing issues? Is there issues from perhaps surrounding communities, something like that, intrusions into our reserves? So it's going to be a really great study. It's going to tie together a lot of different sciences, and we're going to essentially come up with a scorecard, be able to determine where our species is at and what our habitat conditions are currently, and again, do some really good planning for the future. Along with that, we'll continue to carry out our battles against our invasive species, and we have ambitious plans of bolstering the security and protection of our natural resources around our reserves. So we're planning on installing a lot of new fencing and barriers that has kind of been, I wouldn't say neglected, but at least we haven't been able to do for the last 20 years. So we're going to step up our efforts overall in our management here. And again, these numbers are likely pretty high in comparison to what other agencies do. I got a handout to our open space habitat technicians. They're a small but mighty bunch over there. I know I've said it in here before, but we just kind of cook these plans up, and they're the ones that actually take care of all the business out there in the field. So hats off to them. We're looking forward to some great things here in the future. Finally, just want to give an update. I know we've been talking about this for a while now, but recently there was a conference dealing with the issue of stink net here in Southern California. And word has been getting around about the efforts that we've made to map, to find new ways of mapping and tracking what stink net is doing. Word got around during that conference that we were kind of on the cutting edge of this technology. And so we've been approached by the County of Maricopa in Arizona and also the San Diego Wildlife Zoo Alliance to help them out with starting a program and also collaborating together to come up with a cohesive kind of methodology of doing these things. So we've agreed to provide some training for their biologists, their geospatial program managers, and also some of their unoccupied aerial vehicle pilots. So we're looking forward to this. This is going to be a really great regional effort. Well, at this point, multi-state effort. Not only to combat stink net, but also our goal is to have a really comprehensive library vegetation essentially that we're remote sensing. And we do this all by drones essentially in large GIS databases. Eventually, the goal is going to be to have multiple inputs of information where we can see in real time essentially when we have a new invader into our area, a new invasive species into our area. And our hope is that by having all these kind of nodes picking up information throughout the region, we can avoid the issues like we currently have with StinkNet. We can see an invader as it comes in immediately. We can track that and take care of it. So this is a really great milestone or opportunity for us as well. We're providing some of the training and some of the know-how, but we also get to utilize the technologies that, like for instance, the San Diego Zoo Wildlife Alliance has really sophisticated sensors that they could use to track these changes through spectral imagery and so on. So we'll be able to share that technology with them as well. So this is a really great opportunity for us and something we've been looking forward to for a while. And that concludes my report. That is item 6B, and that is a receive and file. Be happy to answer any questions if there's any out there. Yes.
Jackie Peterson, Hammett, I was interested. Do you only do prescribed burns in the spring? Do you do any of them?
Actually, we are planning this year on doing some in the fall, which would mimic a more kind of natural regime here in Southern California. So yes, we are planning on that. It all boils down to availability of CAL FIRE.
Okay, I was invited earlier in the year to observe one and then it got canceled the second day because of conditions. I would be interested in knowing when those are and observing.
Yeah, you're always welcome to come out. I encourage everyone to do so. In fact, there's, I forgot to mention it, but in my slides, there's a video that CAL FIRE put together as part of their weekly report on conditions. And it gives a good overview of what actually CAL FIRE does and how we work together to do all these things. But the day of the fires are quite exciting. To see these flames you never imagined, and also to see how CAL FIRE, the firefighters operate during these fires, how cool and calm they are, even though you're staring at 40, 50 feet wall of flames out there. So yeah, I encourage you all to come out if you have the opportunity to do so.
Thank you.
Mary, the link to that video will be included in sound bites.
Yes.
Any other questions?
Lisa Sobek, City of Menifee. Thank you, Harry, for your report. After our last meeting, I asked for information on the SteepNet, so I just want to thank staff since you touched on that. I tried to do my best as a council person to spread that word with our staff and Public Works and also with our residents. And it was mixed responses from our residents. It was really interesting to see how tangents went off. Why are you picking on this plant now? I mean, it was just crazy to people, really. Thank you so much. I see it in my yard. I'm going to get rid of it. So it was mixed responses, but hey, I saw it and I'd pick it out too. So
we appreciate that. And I think what we lose sight of, or what we should be aware of as a community, is that the landscape of Southern California, or perhaps California, and even, now the Western states is going to change. Very down to your basic sense of the smell that's produced by these plants is going to change how we perceive Southern California. So the looks of it, the smell of it, everything is going to be different. The Golden Hills, which I have to say already, the Golden Hills that California is known for are invasives. As it is, but next time you look out, maybe 10 years down the road, you're going to see either bright yellow or really rusty brown. And we have to kind of consider that yeah, as biologists, we realize how detrimental it is, but as a person who's grown up in Southern California and has lived here for a while, it's going to change how we know and the entire landscape. So hopefully somebody will catch on.
Thank you, Harry. Any other questions?
How about Joseph Morbido from Wildomar? So I did have two questions. One was, so why was that? Was it a Toyota that was on its side?
Yeah, that's just demonstrating essentially the daily tasks that their open space habitat technicians have to go through every day. I can attest to it is something different, and during the day, they may have to respond to a vehicle going through a fence, and an hour later, there's a rattlesnake in a neighbor's yard that you have to go maybe deal with. So it's really a diverse amount of things that they have to do out there.
So then the second question was back to stink net. Now, I believe that isn't the wild mustard also invasive? It wasn't here initially. So at which point do we just accept that it's here? Because I think it's probably every year I've heard about it. It went from this one little plant that looked kind of cool in my backyard. It's like, I want this to grow next year, not under, you know, so now it's everywhere, all over, everywhere. So it's like, there's no way to really get rid of it. So.
Right, and that's the question that we've asked our academic folks, is at what point do we say that's it, it's here and there's not much we can do about it? There's varying opinions. Some people say never, we can't let that happen, because what I said is it's gonna completely change the landscape. We don't know what effects it's going to have down the chain. But you're right, yeah, at this point, the genie's out of the bottle, and I mean, I said it during the last meeting, we doubled our weed control efforts this year, our budget was doubled. Our equipment is gonna get bigger, but I don't know if we're gonna be able to make it such a great impact. We may be able to keep it controlled in our reserves, but regionally, I don't know if there's enough resources throughout our region or manpower even to make enough for a project that large.
So the bigger picture, and what's scary is, like one person mentioned to me, they lost their bees because of it.
They what?
They lost their bees.
They lost them.
Yeah, because it smothered out, I guess, where the bees needed. So they lost their whole hives and everything.
Right, it now competes the vegetation that's there, so you get, unless you get used to stink net flavor.
I mean, it's, I would say it's the art, it's never forage on it, but it's like iceberg lettuce, you can't survive on just iceberg lettuce, so using the diversity of flowers and pollen and stuff. Rich sugars, that honey and the beaver larvae and stuff like that. So yeah, you can collapse an entire hive with your stink net. From my philosophical, and we may vary the biggest, talk about this all the time, and if we can continue to keep it out of the reserves, I can't do anything about it alone. You know, the I-15 or this and that, but our main focus is to keep it out of the SPR reserve system, conserve lands, so we can recover these species. Right now, we can keep it at bay. I don't think we're gonna eliminate it. It's there, it's naturalized, like you said, mustard, you know, or non-native grasses, it's there. Can we keep it at a manageable level so it doesn't truly impact SPR? I think so. We just need better equipment. And so I think we're now getting to the point where, again, it's on everybody's radar. There's multiple states involved, as Harry mentioned, and we're now getting everybody's attention. Funding is coming in, and equipment is getting ramped up, and people are paying more and more attention to it. It's unfortunate, though. It has to get to a certain level before people look at it as a threat, and then at that point, you can't put that genie back in the bottle. If we would have recognized 15 years ago, 20 years ago, when it was just on Box Spring Mountain. We could have pulled it, hand pulled it, and never been involved with it, but nobody does anything until, unfortunately, it's their area, or, you know, gets to be an emergency level. So, but I think with the new equipment, the new grant funding, we should be able to put a dent into it, at least keep it at bay in the resources.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Harry, for that fantastic information and great questions, everybody. Moving on to educational outreach program activities update. Brianna.
Madam Chair. Alright, so we are celebrating the Institution Educational event is will continue this fall as staff are preparing to host this event at our Lake Matthews Reserve, which we did first time last year, and again at our Southwest Mosaic Species Reserve for 5th and 6th grade students. Schools that are tentatively scheduled include Hidden Springs Elementary in Moreno Valley, which will be their first time attending, Rice Canyon Elementary in Lake Elsinore, and Warm Springs Middle School in Marietta, which is also their first year attending. The event dates are tentatively scheduled for October 3rd and November 7th and 8th. Schools are just returning from summer break. The details will be confirmed later this month, and staff will send out invitations to board members with any elective
We like those short reports. Nicely done.
That's a quick report. Those are always super amazing events to watch, fold out, so all of, please notify all the members of those dates once they're confirmed. If you could, Rihanna, that would be amazing. Thank you so much, and that's a receive and file. All right, now a report from the executive director, Dr. Wilson.
Madam Chair, Dr. Wilson's not online with us. He's not here.
He was unable to make it.
Oh, he's unable to make it. I'm sorry, it's a little bit hard to hear. So, all right, well, we will skip his infinite wisdom for next time. Moving on to items of the future agenda. Members are invited to suggest additional items to be brought forward for discussion at future Board of Directors meetings. Is there anyone who would like to bring a future item forward? All right. Seeing and hearing none, I'll move on for general announcements. Members are invited to announce items or activities which may be of general interest to the Board of Directors. Anyone have any I'll start by saying that I just attended the State of the City for Temecula, and what a wonderful event it was. It was wonderful to meet and greet, even though they got us up at 7 a.m. to get to Pechanga. So I've been up since 5. Great event. Hats off to the City of Temecula. It was wonderful to be included. So.
Menifee, Madam Chair, I'd just like to say that Chief Bischoff was one of our battalion chiefs for 3.5 years in the city of Menifee. So he does live in the city of Menifee with his wife and 2 children. So that did hit us very close. And so just want to just let everybody know that it's been hard on us.
Thank you for sharing that. And I know our thoughts and prayers are with all of you as well as his family and children. Any other announcements?
I'll throw one out there. So Pocomar is having State of the City in September, towards the end of the month. So as many that can make it there, especially those that are in Southwest Riverside County and or even RCHCA, love to see you guys there.
All right, thank you all. Our next board of directors meeting is scheduled for Thursday, December 14th. I cannot believe that we're already talking about December. And it'll be at 11:30 and it'll be at the WRCOG office in Riverside. So with nothing else, I will move to adjourn, and I'll take a motion and a second to adjourn.
I'll second.
Thank you so much. And as we're closing this meeting, just our thoughts and prayers going out to our fallen CAL FIRE firefighters that are affecting all of our communities, and thoughts and prayers for their families. Thank you, everyone. And I look forward to seeing you all in person next meeting.
Your black work doing for Aaron. Wait, what? Oh, you know what? I have to work on it. I haven't got time. I'll go get it.
RCHCA.
Hey, Brian.
Great lunches.